Independent Islamic Republic.
औरंगजेब और उसके लोग गुरु गोविंद सिंह के बच्चों का धर्म तलवार के दम पर बदलना चाहते थे। भारत को बदलने के उसके मंसूबों के खिलाफ गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी पहाड़ की तरह खड़े थे। साहबजादों के इस बलिदान में
For those who don't know what Prime Minister Narendra Modi was talking about, let me briefly explain. He was talking about a Mughal emperor who died more than 300 years ago. He's often discussed in India. Some Muslims in India admire him, as he was a Sunni Muslim ruler, whilst others condemn him. However, amongst Hindutva circles, he is often discussed and cunningly shown as an example of a typical Muslim. Which isn't true. What doesn't help is, there are supporters of Aurangzeb in India who provide ammunition to hate-mongering Hindutvadis. It's mostly the Wahhabi types.
فكيف برجل جمع هذا كله وهو ملك الهند السلطان العظيم أورانغزيب عالم جير اسم غريب لشخصية غريبة وأنا كلي أسى أن إخواني وأخواتي لا يعرفون هذه الشخصية.
Aurangzeb ruled India for nearly 50 years, from 1658 to 1707. He was far from being a good Muslim. He came to the throne after imprisoning his father and having his older brother killed. What's interesting is he came from a semi-secular family. His great-grandfather Akbar was a secular ruler. His grandfather Jahangir was known for his love for art and architecture, and father Shah Jahan was the great so-called romantic who built the Taj Mahal. And Aurangzeb, the sixth emperor, was glorified in history as a devout Muslim, which I beg to differ on. He was a ruthless tyrant who was an expansionist, imposed harsh laws, calling it Sharia, and he even charged non-Muslims a tax to pay in return for protection. Can you imagine? You invade someone's land, take over their territory, and then charge them. Not quite right, is it?
السلطان العظيم أورانغزيب عالم جير.
He hated music and other fine arts and ordered the destruction of several temples. Anyway, all that happened hundreds of years ago, but the attention he's getting recently has been unprecedented, and that's because there are people out there in India who don't see anything wrong with expansionism. They don't see anything wrong with taking over other people's lands and imposing taxes. Thanks to Umayyad history and the typical Darul Uloom education system which brainwashes people into being proud of so-called Islamic conquests. Unfortunately, Islamic history has not been taught correctly in madrasas in South Asia, not from a Quranic context anyway, but rather from the lens of being proud of taking people's land and winning battles. This is what has kept us away from true guidance. Boasting about conquests and victories is not the way of a Muslim. You see, Britain at one point in history was known as the empire on which the sun never set, yet today, British people have wisened up. I can speak as I've lived there most of my life. British people aren't proud of what the British Empire did in India. The politicians will never admit this, but this is the reality on ground. You'll never hear from a Brit that we invaded India, Africa and Asia and so on. You will never see them boasting about it. However, unfortunately, boastful type of attitude has remained with many scholars out there in India. And I know not all Indian Muslims are like that, but there are some, and they get a lot of attention when they boast about Aurangzeb being a Sunni Muslim leader. This is totally wrong, because you are letting pride in your religion equate to pride in history, the kings, the caliphs and the generals. This is not the way. You have to ask yourself, is the religion of Allah to be proud of Aurangzeb because he was a Muslim who wanted to expand borders and take over other people's land and forcefully convert them? This isn't the religion of God. The religion of Allah is the book of Allah. And sometimes I think Allah has indeed tested us and disciplined us from the least place we'd expect. He's given power to others over us, and all that is left now is to be boastful about history and never criticizing ourselves or even the scholars who claim to represent us. Will being proud of people like Aurangzeb bear fruit? There's Palestine occupied in front of you. Try it. Become the Aurangzeb you lost over. Go. But will you go? Of course not. Allah says in the Holy Quran, "Verily Allah will not change the condition of a people as long as they don't change their state themselves." I also want to recommend my video on Did Prophet Muhammad Come to Smash Idols? We discuss virtue and God consciousness and how the Holy Quran commands us not to cooperate with vice and aggression. Because when you are proud of people like Aurangzeb, you are not only going against the message of Allah and His messenger, but you are also cooperating with Hindutva who also cooperate in vice and aggression. Assalamu alaikum, Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, Khushamadid, have a wonderful night.
We are the Independent Islamic Republic.